attend, attending today, and welcome to the second webinar of our policy landscape series. So last December, we had a first policy landscape webinar. Over 550 industry partners joined us to learn about climate and cybersecurity initiatives. You can find webinar number one, the presentation, the recording, and interact, and the link is provided in the presentation. The objective of these webinars is to provide awareness of existing and potential new requirements so that you, as our industry partners, can continue to successfully participate in the federal marketplace and serve our mutual customers. I'm glad to meet with you again to discuss relevant executive orders, policy and initiatives, and to provide valuable information and resources. If we could just hit the next slide. Before we get started, I just want to emphasize this is an informational presentation discussing the policy landscape. GSA is not directing our industry partners to make any decisions based on the information discussed during the webinar. During the presentation, GSA representatives will not comment on ongoing federal acquisition regulation policy and rulemaking matters. We're making this information available in good faith. We do not assume the usefulness of the information provided. Essentially, it's up to you to make decisions on how you want to operate as a business. With that over, let's talk about some objectives for today. So we've got three main objectives. First, we want to discuss initiatives for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and accessibility, including current executive orders and the joint venture policy for the multiple award schedules program. Second, we'll explain how you can leverage the forecast of contract opportunities tool for success. We want to make sure that you as our industry partners see those opportunities as soon as possible so that you're aware you can plan for that in your bid and proposal costs, and hopefully you can help us meet those really important requirements. Our third objective is to continue the conversation around cybersecurity initiatives. We are going to inform you about the current cybersecurity and infrastructure security agencies' current activities and resources. And these are critical resources that you can take as a supplier to make sure that you're keeping up and helping us with that important protecting the cybersecurity and mitigating supply chain risk. So next, I want to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Stephen Hutchinson. Steve is he's a branch chief in our policy division. He will be discussing executive orders and new initiatives to advance racial equity and support for underserved communities. So go ahead and take it away, Steve.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for that introduction. Okay, let's get started. Hello, good afternoon. Today, I'm going to talk about some of the actions GSA FAST is taking to support the administration's diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. Can you go to the next slide? Diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility is a Biden-Harris administration priority. I have included here many of the most relevant executive orders related to this priority to give you a flavor for the emphasis this priority has. Next slide. Executive Order 13985. This was one of the first actions the president took demonstrating the administration's commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. This executive order was issued on January 20th, 2021. The executive order established that the federal government should pursue a comprehensive approach to advancing equity for all and creating opportunities for the improvement of communities that have been historically underserved. Can you go to the next slide? Executive Order 14091 was issued recently on February 16th, 2023. This builds on Executive Order 13985 by directing agencies to produce an annual public equity action plan that will assess and include actions to address the barriers underserved communities may face in accessing and benefiting from the agency's policies, programs, and activities. It also formalizes the president's goal of increasing the share of federal contracting dollars awarded to small disadvantaged businesses, otherwise known as SDBs, by 50% by 2025 to 15%. It also strengthens requirements for agencies to build and resource agency equity teams and designate senior leaders accountable for implementing the president's equity mandate. It also requires agencies to increase engagement with underserved communities by identifying and applying innovative approaches to improve the quality, frequency, and accessibility of engagement. Next slide. OMB Memo 2203 ties the administration's DEIA goals to federal procurement. The slide shows what actions were called out in that memo. In a recent OMB Memo 23-11 issued on February 16th, the administration focuses on creating a more diverse and resilient federal marketplace through the increased participation of new and recent entrants. OMB Memo 2311 establishes a common definition of new entrant and recent entrant, so agencies can baseline, track, and benchmark how well they retain new entrants with the goal of maintaining a more diverse supplier base. The memo also identifies two new tools: a supplier-based dashboard developed by GSA. This tool allows the public and agency managers to track the size of the supplier base and the mix of new entrants, recent entrants, and established vendors in the supplier base, and a new procurement equity tool to help agencies identify entities that may be interested in participating in agency procurement competitions. Next slide. In response to Executive Order 104035, GSA developed and issued on June 25th, 2021, its Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Strategic Plan. In its DEIA plan, GSA presents a multi-year blueprint that outlines GSA's path to establishing the framework required to advance and mature DEIA as a core mission capability. As part of its key mission in federal procurement, and to further the administration's goal of advancing equity in federal acquisition, GSA issued a Supplier Diversity and Equity Action Plan. It focuses on improving accessibility to federal procurement opportunities. To ensure procurement opportunities are available and accessible, GSA will implement the following steps throughout the contract lifecycle: making it easier for firms to obtain a multiple award schedule contract and improve vendor education. This includes updating the MAS roadmap to simplify processes and launching an updated vendor support center website with a wide range of resources. Building SDB opportunities into new acquisition programs. For example, Polaris, 8A Stars, Next Generation Services Multi-Agency Contract to support federal agencies. Ensuring SDB access throughout the life of major GSA or government-wide indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts by providing periodic onboarding opportunities through on-ramps. Enhancing e-tools to make it easier for contractors to find and evaluate federal marketplace opportunities. And introducing a new post-award support pilot program to help GSA contractors understand contract requirements, customer expectations, and position themselves to obtain new business. Next slide. Now let's talk about some actions FAST is taking to implement the President's DEIA objectives. One area is by encouraging more JVs en masse. Next slide. FAST has seen an increase in the number of JV offers en masse. Working with the Small Business Administration, FAST developed a mass JV policy. The policy focuses on compliance with existing SBA regulations, addressing issues such as affiliation, changes in business size, and the limits on mentor-protege agreements. Next slide. This mass JV policy will promote consistency across the mass program for JVs, ensure offer requirements for JVs are outlined in the solicitation, provide guidance to the mass acquisition workforce. This should make the mass JV process more efficient and encourage more small business opportunities on the multiple award schedules program. Next slide. Our mass industry partners should see these changes soon on Interact in advance of a May refresh to the solicitation to implement these changes. So again, the mass policy on JV will be implemented. We're looking at the May timeframe and look at Interact for these changes. Next slide. In an effort to be fully transparent on how GSA is doing in meeting its socioeconomic goals, we have included them here. Here are our prime goals for this year and next. Next slide. Here are our subcontracting goals for this fiscal year and next. In FY22, utilizing data from the summary subcontracting reports, known as SSRs, in the reporting cycle for FY22, it revealed that FAST exceeded SBA subcontracting achievement goals for 4 out of the 5 categories. So we're doing pretty good, and these are just examples of the goals that we share with the SBA for FAST going forward. Or I'm sorry, for GSA. Next slide. Now let's talk about some actions FAST is taking to implement the president's DEIA objectives outside of mass. For example, we mentioned earlier Polaris. You can see on the slide opportunities for socioeconomic categories such as women-owned small business, hub zone, and service-disabled veteran-owned small business. And like I mentioned earlier, Polaris also has contemplated future on-ramping. These are all areas that GSA FAST is taking to meet its DEIA goals. Next slide. Again, on Oasis Plus, you can see vast opportunities for socioeconomic participation, including the same socioeconomic categories as Polaris and 8As. On-ramping is also featured to replenish the small business pool. So again, here's some of the things that we're anticipating in the upcoming Oasis Plus RFP. Next slide. Because we anticipate Oasis Plus will be such a significant opportunity for small business, we just wanted to mention the teaming opportunities that exist. Also, here on this slide is another example of what Oasis Plus is doing with its offering and its upcoming RFP. 8A firms, Hub Zone, women-owned small business, service-disabled veteran-owned small business, and again, a pool for small businesses, and then an unrestricted pool. Next slide. Again, as we anticipate Oasis will be a significant opportunity for small business, we just want to mention the teaming opportunities that exist. So again, if you're interested in participating in the upcoming Oasis RFP and you're interested in teaming, please take a look at this slide. The slides will be made available after the presentation because we want to have as much competition and small business representation as possible. Next slide. As I mentioned earlier, GSA e-tools are an important source of information for small businesses to find and evaluate federal marketplace opportunities. The slide lists some of the most prominent. I encourage you to take a look at these if you're not familiar with them. And again, GSA Advantage is a good part. Can you go back to the prior slide? I'm sorry. GSA Advantage is a great opportunity for our customers to view our products and services primarily on mass. We have eLibrary, which lists all our contractors on some of our major IDIQs. eBuy is a good opportunity if you're a business out there, especially on mass, to view opportunities that you may bid on. Again, of course, you want to go to sam.gov to look at RFPs that are posted, RFIs, and other opportunities. So if you're a new contractor to federal contracting, these are good tools to become aware of to seek out other opportunities. Now I will turn it over to Amber Carson, who will discuss the OSDBU forecast tool.
Thank you, Stephen. Before I begin, I wanted to take a moment to share that when I was asked to give a presentation on the forecast tool, I decided to step back and reflect on my personal journey with forecasting. And, like all federal government contracting professionals, forecasting has followed me throughout my contracting career, which has, I've been lucky enough to span multiple agencies. And the one common theme in every agency was that it was nearly impossible to keep the forecast data updated and accurate. And that's not because we didn't want to, but system processes and limitations made the whole act of keeping data updated feel like drinking water from a fire hydrant. It was nearly impossible. Now, in the last year at FAS, our office has dedicated itself to making the process of updating the tool a reasonable lift for our contracting professionals. So I'm extremely proud to report that our efforts have resulted in some of the most accurate forecast data I have seen in my career. And I'm excited to share those results with you that we've had to improve the quality of our forecast tool data. So today I'd like to invite you to take a tour of our forecast of contracting opportunities tool, help you better understand the value add it offers your organization. I'll explain to you how you can leverage that data to improve your chances of successfully doing business with us and potentially our forecast partner agencies. I'd also like to give you a quick overview on navigating the forecast tool at fbf.gov. And finally, we can bring it all together and discuss best practices and suggestions on how you might best leverage this data for your organization and your business needs. Next slide, please. You may be aware that official contract solicitations, awards, modifications, extensions, etc. They're published at sam.gov, GSA EBI, and some other government acquisition sites. Today, we're focusing on a tool that gives you earlier access to that information before they're advertised on the sites you're seeing above. The tool we're talking about today is GSA's Office of Small Disadvantaged Business, and that's a bit of a mouthful, so we lovingly call it OSDBU here. So the OSDBU Forecast of Contracting Opportunities tool. The GSA OSDBU Forecast tool is a GSA-hosted web-based interface that gives you the earliest possible insight into federal procurement planning for multiple participating agencies. Next slide. So we at GSA, along with other federal agencies, use this tool to publicly communicate anticipated upcoming requirements as required by Public Law 100-656. If you haven't already, take the time to familiarize yourself with FedBiz Forecast at fbf.gov. That's the domain for the GSA forecast. Some other agencies that currently use our tool include the Department of the Interior, Department of Labor, Small Business Administration, and the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. So you will see data from all of those organizations included in our tool, of course, along with our own. The bottom line is that the data provided in this tool is designed to make you aware of potential opportunities as early in the acquisition lifecycle as possible. I do want to add one disclaimer, because these are listed so early in the procurement process. All forecasted opportunities are subject to revision or cancellation. But with that being said, this information still has the potential to help you identify prime contracting and subcontracting opportunity based on your industry or service. Next slide, please. So the question for today is, what would it mean for your business if you were made aware of potential opportunities before they are posted for solicitation? Now, as you can see in this graphic, and I love this graphic, eBuy and sam.gov announce active contracting opportunities, and they're posted relatively late in the procurement lifecycle. Whereas the forecast data we're discussing today is often released as soon as GSA or our partner agencies are aware of a future potential opportunity. Next slide, please. We know that leveraging forecast data can help your company better decide where to invest your limited bid and proposal dollars. A day in the life of our office in relation to the forecast tool often looks like communicating with contracting staff across all FAST portfolios, automating the collection and updating of forecast data, and monitoring the forecast data for indications that it might not be current or accurate. Those efforts are all designed to ensure that the forecasting data you see is as current and as accurate as possible. so that you can leverage that forecast data. Some of the ways you can leverage this data is you can learn about potential contracting opportunities for your company extremely early in the acquisition lifecycle. It allows you to plan your market strategies before opportunities are posted in SAM. Your early access to that forecast data also allows your company to be more effective in business development and planning. You can use that lead time in order to prepare for the nature and scope of some potential procurement, future procurement opportunities you're interested in. And lastly, your company can also easily export the forecast data for analysis. Next slide, please. So how do you access the forecast information? The forecast of contracting opportunities that we're talking about today, this tool resides on the acquisition gateway, and it can be accessed in one of two ways. The easiest is fbf.gov, that stands for Federal Business Forecast.gov. The other is by accessing the acquisition gateway, which is a workspace for acquisition professionals and federal buyers to connect with resources meant to improve our acquisitions government-wide. The link for the gateway is hallways.cap.gsa.gov. There is no username or password required to access the forecast tool, so you can navigate to the link in your browser right now and view the data right away. Next slide, please. There are three basic search methods listed below. You're able to search and sort using a keyword search, various filters, or a combination of both. Next slide, please. The first method I'd like to talk about today is the filter function. The filters are located in the search section on the left of the user interface, which you see on the left of this slide, and they can be combined to search in multiple combinations. The tool allows you to filter by predetermined fields. These include agency, place of performance, acquisition strategy, NAICS code, projected solicitation quarter, and contract type. So in this example, you could search by future contracting opportunities in certain geographical locations or specific industry type, etc. So below you see we've searched for SBA CIO opportunities, which are returned in the results window. You can quickly review those listing summaries in that results window. You can click on view details for additional information, or you can export all of those results to a CSV file for further analysis utilizing your software of choice. Next slide, please. The second search method I'd like to talk about today is keyword. So this is a simple Boolean yes/no search of all available fields by a keyword or phrase. Some popular keyword searches might include listing ID if you happen to know it. That's simply a unique identifier for each listing. Agency, organization or bureau, NAICS code, name, email address. In this example, we've searched by the listing ID. And once again, you can review this information here, or you can export it for further analysis. Next slide, please. Now, this third method is the most powerful. It consists of combining the two methods we just reviewed. So if you combine a keyword search with filters, you can return results more specific to your circumstances. So in the example I ran below, our company is looking for opportunities in West Virginia under our approved NAICS code of 54152, featuring the Cisco products that we sell or whatever the products happen to be, where the agency is still in the planning phase because we're not interested in awarded opportunities. We want to know what's coming. And I'd like to focus your attention on that, right? That award status filter is probably one of the more important filters I want to discuss with you today. So let's talk about that. Next slide, please. So this is the time in the presentation where I'd like for you to put down the smartphone or the cup of coffee or whatever has your attention that isn't on the screen, and really ask that you focus, because I cannot suggest that highly enough that you add a word status filter to each of your searches. And it's important because the OSDVU forecast tool continues to display current fiscal year listings after award. This is by design. They're archived listings. They're for informational purposes. And some data do find this useful. However, for the purposes of identifying future opportunities, it's really critical to filter by an active award status, so you're not putting energy into something that's already been awarded. So the generally accepted quote unquote active forecast statuses that you might be familiar with are planning, solicitation, issued, and drafting solicitation. Another way to sort would certainly be to export to CSV and utilize those fields to create your own sort. Next slide, please. The forecast data is available, as we mentioned before. You can export that, available for download, as we mentioned before. You can export it to a CSV file, use Excel, Google Sheets, or any software you choose. But note that this is a dynamic site, so a point-in-time export may not continue to be valid after, the next day if someone has entered additional opportunities or updated opportunities. So just keep that in mind. Next slide, please. In the limited time we have left, I'd like to touch base on the best practices for a forecast tool search. Once you locate an active opportunity of interest, review the set-aside to determine if the opportunity is planned for award to an other than small business or if it'll be set aside. Final decisions on the extent of competition or small business participation will not be made until a solicitation is posted at sam.gov. So if the plan set aside is for other than small business and you're aware there is adequate competition for the set aside, you can always communicate that information to the point of contact for review before that solicitation is posted or advertised. Next slide, please. You might find that you want to reach out to the agency with questions or concern. If you do reach out, the Office of Small Disadvantaged Business recommends that you determine the status of the opportunity. And then also, if you are a small business, include the small business technical advisor or the small business specialist in your correspondence. That way they can assist with your correspondence with the POC or to answer questions. Next slide, please. Last but not least, I'd like to invite you today to please take a moment to visit www.fbf.gov. You don't have to set up an account, you don't have to do anything, but simply perform a quick keyword search and explore the data to determine if that information is useful for you or your business. For more information on that forecast, you can visit the links below. Next slide. And as Stephen mentioned, we rely on our industry partners to meet our socioeconomic goals, and we certainly welcome any questions, concerns, or ideas for improvement. For support or feedback, please feel free to reach out to one of the appropriate POCs listed below. Thank you for your time. Please take a minute, get out there and look at www.fbf.gov. And now I'm pleased to introduce Ms. Kelly Arts, who will be covering the Cybersecurity Executive Order section of today's presentation.
Thanks, Amber. Good afternoon. I'm Kelly Arts. I'm the Supply Chain Risk Management Technical Lead for the Federal Acquisition Service. For those of you that joined us last quarter, I gave you an update on the open FAR cases that relate to CSCRM in support of the Cybersecurity Executive Order. This month, we're going to focus on an MEMO that came out that directs GSA in software attestations associated with the principles laid out in NIST. And we also want to give you an update on some activities with CISA, who is our partner certainly in implementing the Cybersecurity Executive Order. Next slide, please. Okay, for this slide, this MMO has a direction for software that is being used at GSA as a federal agency. It has a separate set of directives for GSA as the government-wide vehicle holder. So you'll see that GSA IT will have policies and information that you'll follow as software providers to GSA internal infrastructure. And should expect to see an updated attestation process in June this summer. For those of you that sell software on our vehicles, we will allow but not require you to attest that you're following software practices, secure software practices as defined in NIST. CISA is responsible to complete the attestation form, which is not yet available for public viewing, but we expect it to be out soon. GSA will receive those attestations that you choose to provide at the contract vehicle level. And then we're also supporting the FAR Council as they implement a rule that will require attestations in the future. And we hope to have the platform available to make available the forms that you provide to us by the summer as well, to coincide with that new GSA IT policy that's coming out on the attestations. Next slide, please. CISA has had a series of listening sessions. They were kind enough to share some of their feedback that's internal to the government on those listening sessions. And then they worked with us to approve for us to share with you the results of those listening sessions, the highlights of those. They hosted 8 virtual sessions with hundreds of you and your colleagues to discuss SBOM adoption. Their key proposals included a range of resources that drive standardization, as well as support to our small business partners in reducing costs and complexity of providing SBOMs. Very specific proposals included creating an SBOM community of practice, to have an online document repository for SBOM contract language, a practical guide for treating legacy devices and SBOM workarounds. As you may know, there are some providers for software tools that create an SBOM from an existing set of code, to standardize how-to materials for global adoption and engagement, because so many software providers are actually global organizations. And then also a suggestion to publish methods for measuring SBOM adoption. Now, industry encouraged CISA to continue these engagement sessions and drive collaborative solutions, and they have done so. The next series of slides will go into the working groups that CISA is hosting. Next slide, please. And you'll see a range of them. The first one has to do with vulnerability exploitability exchange. And for those of you that have worked with MITRE on the program that they're piloting, the vendor voluntarily submits the product, and then it runs through the vulnerability exchange model to look for known vulnerabilities from open source software libraries. And then it spits out a report to let you know what the vulnerabilities are. That is the working group. The VAX working group is the one that is looking at not just the MITRE solution, but at others, as the government seeks to work with our industry partners to expand that approach. The second one is sharing and exchanging SBOMs. And that work stream focuses on related metadata for the software supply chain to enable discovery and access, while underscoring the importance of solution interoperability. What you see here is the government acknowledging that this is a hard problem, given the interrelatedness of software and lines of code that are shared. Next slide. The third working group has to do with on-ramps and adoption, and it's really targeted for our partners in this space to help them lower the cost and complexities of moving into the SBOM requirements. Some of the goal is to remove barriers and reduce friction to accelerate adoption, because as you learned in our last quarter session, there is some expectation based on the Cybersecurity Executive Order that one of the upcoming FAR rules will mention SBOM, and we've encouraged you to keep an eye on that for public comment. Next slide, please. Another working group is cloud and online applications. Most of the work that we've seen in this space has to do with on-prem software. So this group is focused on exploring how best to apply the SBOM requirements to cloud and SaaS applications. Next slide, please. Tooling and implementation work group focuses on opportunities and challenges for automating the SBOM ecosystem. The SBOM ecosystem is driven by a range of accessible and constructed tools and enabling applications. So some of these are the ones that automate moving code into an SBOM format. Next slide, please. So last fall, NSA, ODNI, and CISA published a series of best practices and principles for software security, and it focused on 3 different audiences. One was a guide for customer agencies buying software. The next was a guide for suppliers, and the third was a guide for developers. So the one that we want to go into detail on is the one for customers, so that you as vendor partners can see what the recommended best practices are for us as government agencies that buy your product. Next slide, please. So acquisition planning and post-award monitoring. The guide recommends security and SCRM requirements and terms that include FAR provisions requiring visibility into the software itself. It suggests that customers require you as suppliers to self-attest that you're following cyber hygiene practices, and it suggests that we require the supplier to inform all customers on how to verify the integrity of the software components. Next slide, please. Now you'll see the life cycle above from requirements through the supply chain risk management, product evaluation, contract deployment, IT operations, and security operations. And in the midst of that life cycle, the guide from CISA says to look for these threats, the undocumented features, malicious or risky code, changes in functionality or security assumptions between evaluation and deployment. And in the vendor environment, they're asking us to see what are the changes in ownership that could impact a risk assessment. Is there poor enterprise or development of cybersecurity hygiene practices? Next slide. The recommended best practices are for customers to require and verify SBOMs that you might provide to us, to perform security, environmental and functionality tests on the product, to check integrity mechanisms, and they have some specific solutions there that we might consider. It also requires notification from you as the supplier to alert the government to a change in ownership, your geographic location, or any third parties to product software, as well as alerting us to cyber incidents and investigation, and to tell us about mitigations and impacts that you've employed. It suggests that we require self-attestation of cybersecurity hygiene practices that you follow, as well as for us to do continuous security monitoring of the product. Next slide. These are additional references that we could point you to find out more information about what CISA is doing in other articles that relate to this space. Next slide. I'd like to turn it over to Mark Lee to close us out.
Hey, good afternoon and good morning again. I just want to thank you for your participation and just want to leave you with a few key takeaways. Obviously, from the volume of information that we shared with you in a relatively short period of time, this is a very dynamic policy environment. Probably one that I have not seen in my experience here of a 2-decade plus career at GSA. My office will continue to executing industry engagements to keep you aware of our latest initiatives, provide you with relevant resources. Look out for future webinars on GSA Interact's website. We will notify you when this webinar presentation and video is available. It is important for you to participate in the process, the policy process. So how can you do that? One, you can provide public comments to policies that are posted in the Federal Register. And two, you can participate in these industry government listening sections that you heard on today, like in areas of cybersecurity. I look forward to continuing to collaborate with you to sustain a healthy, resilient, and secure industrial base. Our final request is that we ask that you complete the webinar assessment. So please fill out the webinar assessment on your screen. It'll be open for the next 15 minutes, and your feedback will help us improve these webinars going forward. So again, thank you for your attendance today and being an active, engaged industry partner and helping us work together to serve our mutual customers. Thank you.